In addition to its grid system for making our websites responsive to different width viewports, Bootstrap also provides a number of CSS classes and HTML element stylings that will make our websites look good straight out of the box. For the remainder of this lesson, we're going to take a look at some of these and how to use them in our web pages. Now, these videos are going to be a great resource for you as a beginner, but as you progress in your competence and your confidence grows, I would highly suggest weeding off of these videos and relying more and more on this documentation. Bootstrap documentation is fantastic and a great resource as you go back and review how to do certain things using the Bootstrap framework. But with that, let's take a look at some of these awesome resources at our disposal. Just like in our CSS lesson, we're going to first look at how to style text. And we're going to run through each of these rather quickly because the purpose of this video is to give you exposure to all the different types of classes and stylings that are available to you, not to exhaustively dive into the use cases for each one. So use this video as kind of a reference of here's what's available, and then refer back to it as need be, or refer back to the documentation when there's some text that you want to style and you're not sure exactly how to do it. So let's get started. And the very first thing that we're going to do is learn how to make header elements that are inline elements. And we do this by using the span HTML element and adding the Bootstrap h1 class to that span element in the case that we want an h1 header. And so in this case, we can now add header elements in the same block as one another because they're inline rather than block level elements. Moving on, we can also include these small tags within any type of text element, such as headers or paragraphs. And these small tags do exactly what they sound like. They make this text within these elements smaller. We also have this lead class that we can add to paragraph elements. And this lead class essentially makes a paragraph element a lead paragraph, so it makes it slightly larger without having to use a header element. Next, we have inline elements that we can encapsulate certain text within a text type element to give it some styling, and Bootstrap actually provides the default styling for each of these types of inline elements. So we have things like mark, which will highlight an element. We have things like delete that'll make the element look, or make the text look like it's been deleted. We have strike through that by default looks very similar. Inserted and underlined are very similar. Small, of course, we saw up here with our header elements, but we can use it within any text element. And then italicized and bold both have default stylings in Bootstrap as well. And of course, we can expand upon these stylings by creating our own style rules. So even though things like delete and strike through look similar by default, we can apply specific rules to them to distinguish the two if we choose. And moving on, Bootstrap also gives us text alignment classes, so we no longer have to add specific rules to justify our text to the right, left, or center. We can simply add this class or these classes, such as text left, text center, text right, and so on, to apply that styling that Bootstrap gives us out of the box. And similarly, we have these casing classes. And these casing classes will make text lowercase, uppercase, or capitalized for us. This can be useful, for instance, if we pull in third-party data into our web application that we want to normalize and style appropriately. And the last thing we're going to look at are block quotes. And in this case, Bootstrap applies styles to the HTML elements themselves, such as block quote, a footer that's nested within block quote, the site element, and things like that. And we can also reverse the block quote, which essentially means right justify the block quote by adding an additional class to the block quote element. So now that we've seen all these classes and styled elements in our HTML, let's go to the browser to see how they actually appear in our web page. Very cool. The header classes are inline just like we anticipated. The small text that was inside the small elements of our header class is smaller than the rest of the text in that header class. The lead paragraph element is clearly slightly larger than other paragraph elements. All of the inline elements we added to text within a paragraph element are doing some neat little styling things to that text. The alignment classes do exactly as we anticipated. They align them left, centered, and right. Justified and no wraps a little bit harder to see in this case, but we can trust that they're still there. The text lowercase class made all of our uppercase text lowercase, and then the text uppercase class made all of our text that was lowercase uppercase, and the text capitalized class made it capitalized. Finally, our block quotes have nice little stylings that make them look like blocks, and then this source at the bottom of them. In essence, the schnozberries taste like schnozberries. And if there's anything you felt like you missed along the way, feel free to rewind the video, pause it, take a snapshot, write out some examples on your own, because it's important to become familiar with how to style text using Bootstrap.